Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, the Raiders come up with another walk-off victory. We'll talk about how they got the 40-34 win over the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. We'll talk about running back Josh Jacobs and his heroic performance that he had. Plus, you'll hear from multiple players out of the Raiders locker room. It's all coming up on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Another victory Monday here, November 28th, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, and it only takes 2 wins to have a winning streak, and that's currently what the Raiders are on after getting another victory on Sunday, 40-34 overtime, walk-off style. Instead of Davante Adams this time, it was running back Josh Jacobs. And, man, we got plenty to talk about when it comes to running back Josh Jacobs. Talked about him a lot last week. Please believe that conversation is only going to grow bigger and greater and larger this week here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Today's episode is being brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less in their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. The Raiders come up with a 40-34 victory in overtime, second week in a row of a walk-off victory. This time it was with the legs of running back Josh Jacobs, and really a game that you didn't even know if he was going to play. You know, Friday afternoon when I found out that he had a calf injury and he was limited on practice on Friday and he was on the injury report, I thought, oh man, that's just not what the Raiders needed. But not only did he tough it out, but he had a heroic and a historic game for the silver and black. Let's just go through the numbers real quick. Derek Carr, 25 for 36, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And I'm sure if you're like me, Raider Nation, when you saw those first 2 interceptions early, you thought it's going to be one of those type days. I know the first interception on a pass to Davante Adams just looked like those 2 guys were on this not on the same page. It's going to happen. It's going to happen more often than not. Normally, DC doesn't turn the ball over, but he turns it over there. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see what happens there. The Raiders give up a touchdown. Then all of a sudden he comes back and gives up another interception, and Quandre Diggs comes up with another interception. I'm like, oh, man, it's really going to be a bad day. And the Raiders only end up giving up 3 points off that one. So 10 points off turnovers in total. But still, Derek Carr completed 25 of 36, 295 yards, 3 TDs, and 2 interceptions. Now, the man of the hour, no doubt about it, the man that's going to be talked about all week long, running back Josh Jacobs, 33 carries, 229 yards, 6 catches, 74 yards, 303 total yards on the day, 2 touchdowns. And this is on the anniversary of Bo Jackson just going off on Monday Night Football in Seattle. I know you remember that going back to November 30th, 1987. He went off for 221 yards on the ground. Well, Jacobs went for 229, right? How wild is that? And really, it's so funny. I saw on Twitter a lot on Sunday evening. Even my man Vegas Jess was saying, only thing Josh Jacobs didn't do is run into the tunnel. That would have been the icing on the cake if when he ran it off that touchdown, he thought about running into the tunnel like Bo Jackson did to walk it off. That would have been fantastic, but didn't happen, didn't matter. Game, set, match is what Josh Jacobs said. And, man, what a fantastic performance. We're going to talk a lot more about Josh Jacobs coming up in segment number 2, but what a monster day. Davante Adams, 7 catches, 74 yards, 1 yard short of 1,000 yards. And I forgot to mention that when it comes to Josh Jacobs went into the game at 930 yards, needing 70 yards to get to 1,000. He ended the game with 1,159 yards, and now he's the number 1 rusher in the league. He's number 1 in rushing in the NFL, Raider Nation, with 1,159 yards. And Davante Adams is sitting there with 999 yards in receiving yards so far with the Raiders this year. So 1 yard shy of 1,000 for Davante. Also, as far as the numbers go, Max Crosby, 1.5 sacks on the day. He now has double-digit sacks on the season, 10.5 to be exact. The Raiders got some production from the middle, the interior of their defensive line. Bilal Nichols, he come up with a 0.5 sack. Andre Billings with a sack. 1.5 sacks came from the defensive tackles of the Raiders. And hopefully Andre Andrew Billings, excuse me, it's my guy. Andrew Billings is healthy. I know him very well, and I'm calling him Andre. His name is Andrew Billings, the pride of Waco High, the pride of Baylor University. Hopefully, Andrew is healthy. He left the game, and it looked like he either had a knee or an ankle injury. So when we talk to Josh McDaniels later on this morning, hopefully he'll say that he's okay or they're still evaluating him. But for his sake, man, he looked really good on Sunday. Denzel Perryman, interception on the day. Plus, not to mention flying around the field. He was all over the field. He did a hell of a job. And all I could think about when he got the interception and returned it 24 yards is I could think about that conversation I had with him in the locker room on Thanksgiving when he was talking about his grandfather passing when he was in high school on Thanksgiving. So that day always, was just, it meant a little bit more to him and was more personal for him. And I remember saying, well, just go to Seattle and ball out for him on Sunday. Well, Denzel Perryman definitely balled out on Sunday. Shout out to Grandpa Perryman because I'm sure that as soon as he came up with that interception, Grandpa was in his thoughts. And even Chandler Jones came up with a fumble recovery, and he didn't have a sack. He didn't register a sack, but I'll say this, Raider Nation, I got to give credit where credit's due. Chandler Jones was around the quarterback, Geno Smith, quite a bit, harassing him quite a bit. Really, the Raiders, I thought, did a good job in general getting pressure on Geno on Sunday. But Chandler Jones, he gets paid to get sacks. He doesn't get paid to, get close. But he was getting close, and he was causing some havoc in that Seahawks backfield, getting around Geno and other guys coming up with big plays. Again, Max 1.5 sacks, Bilal Nichols a half sack, Andrew Billings 1 sack as well. So I just thought that was an all-around good performance from the Raiders pass rush. As far as game balls go, obviously Josh Jacobs gets the game ball that matters. 33 carries, 229 yards, 6 catches, 74 yards, 303 total yards, and 2 touchdowns, a Raiders all-time record. Right? I mean, that's a Raiders all-time performance. Incredible. Max Crosby, he gets a game ball. He came up huge defensively when huge was needed. Right? Late in the game, when the Seahawks were having an opportunity to go down the field and possibly score, Max Crosby ended the drive with a sack. Other times, Max Crosby ended the drive with an incompletion, a force where Geno Smith had to throw an incompletion, really bad pass. Max Crosby stepped up in a major way, especially late in the game, to really harass Geno Smith. So I'm giving him a game ball as well. And like I said, Denzel Perryman played his tail off. Like I said, I thought he was all around the ball, came up with that huge interception. The Raiders came up with points off that turnover. So that was big as well. So Jacobs, game ball, Max Crosby, game ball, Denzel Perryman, game balls for me. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up with segment number 2, going to turn our attention to Josh Jacobs. 100% Josh Jacobs. I'm also going to take you back to April 24th, 2019, the day before the draft, before the Raiders selected Josh Jacobs with the number 24 overall pick. Going to have a conversation. You hear the conversation I had with Josh at Nissan Stadium right there in Tennessee. We'll talk about Jacobs, talk about what I think the Raiders need to do with him moving forward since they did decline his 5th-year option. All that good stuff, Josh Jacobs related, is all coming up in segment number 2. Before I get to any of that, though, I do want to tell you about one of our great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that is Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Block Forever now wherever you get your podcasts. Block Forever is a brand new podcast with former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level, gives football fans the insider's look at the game through the eyes of the greatest players and personalities of all time. He'll sit down with star players, coaches, former pros across the league to get real about what happens on the field and behind the scenes, inside the locker rooms, team meetings, back at the hotel. It's going to be a lot of good insight. You'll hear from Christian McCaffrey, Juju Smith-Schuster, and a whole lot more. Catch the full Block Forever series available anywhere you get your podcast. Available everywhere now. Audible. Get in the game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Got to turn our attention to running back Josh Jacobs. The dude is phenomenal. Having a great season. I mentioned it last week, a guy that could easily have said, hey, you didn't pick up my 5th-year option. You went out and drafted these running backs. You went out and signed running backs as free agents. I just want to take my ball and go home. I want to be traded. I want to sit there and pout. I want to do whatever. He did not do that. He took the high road. And look, Josh Jacobs has been a humble and hungry dude even before he got drafted. And I've always been a big fan of Josh Jacobs. I was a fan of his when he was at Alabama. And my first opportunity to get to talk to him was at Nissan Stadium when it was media availability day, the day before he got drafted. And even in the conversation I had with him back April 24th, 2019, I even suggested to him, I brought up the Raiders' name, and he had suggested then that he had talked to Mayock, he had talked to Gruden, he liked what they had going on. He also liked that, hey, in a year they're going to be in Vegas where it's tax free or state tax is free. They don't charge state tax. So had his head on straight in a major way. So first, before we get into this conversation, what I think the Raiders need to do with Josh Jacobs, I did want to take you back to 2019 and the conversation I had with him right before he gets drafted by the Silver and Black. Here with Alabama running back Josh Jacobs. And Josh, what's this whole experience been like? I mean, it's the day before the draft now. What are you feeling? How's this all been?
This experience has been great, man. I mean, the thing that I'm feeling the most is just soaking up the moment and trying to be as stress-free as possible.
Is that something that the Alabama guys have told you, the Mark Ingrams, the Nick Saban, just everyone who's come before you, like, just soak in this moment, enjoy it?
I mean, yeah, and then it's just a testament to me, like, my life, just to be in this position is huge for me. So it's like, regardless of how I play out, my life's finna change. So what is there for me to be stressing about? You know what I'm saying?
What is the conversations like with your dad? Because I know you have, everything that you've been through in your life, like you mentioned. I mean, going, sleeping in the car and stuff like that. I mean, what is the conversations like with your dad right before this stage?
It's humbling. He gets more emotional than I do because he sacrificed so much for me to be here. And, I mean, he's believed in me before I even believed in myself. I mean, so just to let him be allowed to be a part of this environment and this process with me, I mean, it's huge.
Is this, when you get to the league, whatever team you go to, I mean, is there something that you want to be known for, or is it something that you want to continue to grow? Like, do you have something that you feel like you need to get better at, or are you just going to be like a jack of all trades?
Honestly, I'm my own biggest critic.
Okay.
I feel like I can improve on everything. I don't feel like I've reached my peak. I feel like it's a lot more in store for me, and I don't let nobody put limitations on what I can do and what I can't do. But one of the biggest things, honestly, is just want to stay true to who I am and actually be one to give back to my community. I'm the first one that came out from where I'm from to do anything on this type of level. And even the people that's in Oklahoma that leaves don't really come back and do anything. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing, to go back there and to show people, like, it's possible. And not only change the culture of everything, of the city, of the mindsets of people and things like that. So, I mean, it's definitely huge.
So it sounds like whatever team gets you is going to get on not only a stud on the field, but also a guy that's going to represent off the field and be that example for those guys back home.
Honestly, I feel like anything I do off the field is more important than anything I could ever do on the field. Don't get me wrong, I love the game of football. Right. I put everything into it. But anything touching people's lives and stuff like that is bigger than running the ball down the field. I mean, so that's probably my thoughts about it all. I mean, just being in a position, I said, never having somebody to look up to. I just want to be that for somebody. I mean, so that's huge for me.
Any idea where you think you may be going tomorrow?
Honestly, I don't know. I keep getting this question. I don't know.
Well, I mean, with Marshawn retiring today, all of a sudden all the headlines are, hey, you're going to go to the Raiders, or the Raiders are going to need you.
I see that. I mean, I like Gruden. I talked to Mayock and all of them out there. I mean, they have a great staff. So it should be interesting however it play out. Hopefully, I mean, if we go out there tax-free that next year, I mean, that sounds good to me.
You got your head all right. You're already thinking about taking your finances.
Yeah, of course.
All right, well, good luck to you, my man.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just thought that was cool to be able to bring that up, and you hear from Josh Jacobs and hear how humble and hungry he was even before he got drafted and what he's all about, talking about giving back to his community, being someone that other folks from his area could look up to because nobody from his area has ever made it like that. I mean, just the guy's got his head on straight, of course, talking about his father and the way that he raised him and his siblings. And again, just he's always been a really good, down-to-earth dude, and he is showing it this year on the field with the Raiders. And on Sunday, Devontae Adams had a decent game, but if it ain't for Josh Jacobs, who, by the way, was questionable going in with a calf injury, wasn't sure if he was going to play. If it wasn't for him, they don't win that game, right? I mean, he just absolutely balls out. And look, I'll say it right now. There was a couple play calls that Josh McDaniels made I wasn't a big fan of. 4th and inches, instead of having a Derek Carr just quarterback sneak it, they try to pitch it to Jacobs. I get giving the ball to Jacobs all the time because he was so hot. Why wouldn't you? But, there's a few play calls that I wasn't a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of, just kicking a field goal at the end of the first half, not taking a shot into the end zone. But Josh McDaniels wanted to ensure that he got himself some points as opposed to none because you just don't know what's going to happen. But, man, Josh Jacobs really, like I said, put it on his legs, put it on him to get the job done and go win the game. And, man, I don't know exactly what the money's going to look like later on my radio show on Raider Nation Radio 920 at 3:30 Pacific time. Michael Janitti from Spotrac.com is actually going to join the show and talk about what a contract would look like for Josh Jacobs. And right after the game was over, I tweeted out, it was real simple. Pay the man. It's that simple. #Raiders. And 99.9% of the people were like, yes, hell yeah, Q, I agree with you 100%. And, of course, there was always going to be a couple folks that are going to reach out and be like, well, why would they do that? They did this. That. Look, the point is, and I know that there's pushback. Josh Jacobs has to agree to a contract extension. But the Raiders, if they wanted to, and this is what I think they should do, I don't even think they should allow him to hit free agency. I think the smartest thing to do would be to sign him before the season's even over. And I know Josh Jacobs, him and his agent, they have the right to say, no, thank you. Whatever the Raiders, they can offer him the biggest contract ever in the history of running backs, and they can say, nah, it's okay, we'll test the open market. And that's fine. They can do that. But I think that the Raiders should say this guy has proven above a shadow of the doubt what he is to this team, what he means to the team, not only as just a running back. And I know that paying running backs is a risky business at times. I get that. But he has proven who he is on the field, who he is in the locker room. I mean, look, the Raiders they were a 3-win team going into the game, right? He could have said, hey, I've already ran for damn near 1,000 yards. My calf is hurt. I don't want to risk hurting it more. I'm going to sit it on out. He's already earned his money, Raider Nation. Make no mistake about it. Everything he's done is gravy at this point. He didn't need a 303-yard performance to earn a big contract. He's going to get a big contract one way, one how, somewhere, somehow, right? It's going to happen. So he could have just said, I'm going to shut it on down. I don't want to risk getting more hurt. Go ahead and let Zamir White get some burn. Instead, he wanted to be out there. And again, he put the team on his shoulders, on his legs, and got it done. You can see the emotion from Derek Carr on the field after the game on JJ's walk-off run. He was like, it was almost like a thank you. Like, hey, this wasn't the best day for me, wasn't the best performance for me, but my running back had my back. So me personally, I think that Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, Josh McDaniels, I think that they should all come to agreement of saying, hey, let's offer this dude a deal before free agency even comes up. They can do that since he's under contract with the team. And that was basically the point I was trying to make on Twitter. Of course, I had some pushback, but that's fine. You're always going to get some pushback, right? So I had that. That's cool. They also, at the end of the season, if they really want to, they could franchise him. I thought that was something that was out of the question since they declined his 5th-year option. But after the season he's put up, it's okay to say, hey, my bad, right? You know what? We didn't think that you were going to be worth this certain amount of money. We were wrong. So now we're going to have to take the L, right? Sometimes just admitting that you're wrong is okay. So if they end up having to franchise him and even put the exclusive franchise tag where no other team can negotiate with them, they can do that. There's just no way that they can allow that guy to get out of the building. You can't. With the performance he's put in, and I know it's a contract year, and I know that, next year it might not look the same. I get it. But the dude just means too much to the team. Could you imagine what this team would look like if actually Waller and Renfro, who did get paid, were out there and available? Could you imagine that with that 3-headed monster that they would have that we talked about such a lot, and why my expectations for this season were so high? You could see that this team could be good. And they're not real deep. They don't have a lot of depth, but you can see that they have the opportunity to be good. They just put a 40-burger up on the Seahawks that have a good defense. And that was with 2 turnovers, right? They put up a 40-burger. They could be a really good team. They need a lot of help defensively. Don't get me wrong, but they could be a very good offense. And if they have all their key components, and it's not JJ's fault that Waller and Renfro are out, right? You get those guys back. You have Devontae Adams. You still have the trigger man and Derek Carr, and you have a paid Josh Jacobs. Man, it really could be pretty scary, right? I mean, it really could. That offense could be scary. You see it has the potential. We know potential is stuff that hasn't happened yet, but it's there. It is there. So I really think, and I'm going to ask Josh McDaniels today. We're going to talk to him about 10:30 at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center. So whatever time you're listening to this, maybe we already talked to him. That'll be one of my questions. What does that tell you about the man who Josh Jacobs is? He got the 5th-year option decline. He could have sulked. He could have asked for a trade. He could have done this, that, and the other. He could have got offended that you played him in the Hall of Fame game. And instead, all he has done is led the team to a victory, 300 yards from scrimmage on Sunday, and now leads the league in rushing. Right? That's incredible. My man has over 1,100 yards rushing and has, almost 10 touchdowns on the season? Has 9? That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And you think about the almost 1,000 yards that Devontae Adams has and 10 touchdowns. It's wild. The team has the potential to be great. Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, Josh McDaniels, before the season gets wrapped up, make sure you get Josh Jacobs signed on the dotted line. Get him a contract extension before the season's over. It's so funny. I had texted a couple people as I was putting my radio show together on Sunday, and I said, man, they should sign that dude to a contract extension on the flight home. Right? Just get it done. And even on the flight home, and this, I'll wrap up on this. Devontae Adams, I don't know if you got a chance to see him. Devontae Adams had put on his Instagram, and someone had tweeted it out. He was standing on the plane with Josh Jacobs, like not name tag, but his card. It said Josh Jacobs. Right? I mean, Devontae Adams, number one wide receiver in the league, right? He's standing on the plane holding a name tag that says Josh Jacobs. Basically letting you know what he thinks and what he feels about that dude. And that's coming from Devontae Adams. That tells you all you need to know. That's all I got for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, going to let you hear from a few players inside that Raiders locker room following the game. Foster Moreau, Amir Abdullah, and Mad Max Crosby. That's all coming up after I tell you about the title sponsor of today's show, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made simple. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport: NFL, NBA, NHL, PGA, college basketball, men's and women. Of course, the World Cup's going on right now. They have esports, NASCAR, tennis, anything you can imagine. They've got you covered. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. All you got to do is download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, use the promo code Locked On to sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up tomorrow, I'll definitely get to calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. But today, thanks to Vinny Bonsignore, I did not travel to Seattle, but Vinny Bonsignore does a fantastic job on Raider Nation Radio 920, also the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He sent over some good quality sound from the Raiders locker room. And coming off another victory, why not have the locker room sound, right? We can get calls and texts every single day. That's not a problem. But coming off another victory, the way that they got the victory, walk-off fashion, 2 games in a row, 2 games on the road. Now they return to Allegiant Stadium this week against the Chargers. The Chargers have to be the team that they're eyeing, right? I know that the Chargers pulled off a victory against the Cardinals last second, overtime. I get that. So they have 6 wins on the season. But, man, the Raiders are right there on the Chargers' heels. And they have an opportunity now, to win their home and home, right? I mean, they lost in L.A. Now they have an opportunity to win in Las Vegas come Sunday. But first, we got to take you inside the Raider locker room, man. Foster Moreau, Amir Abdullah, Max Crosby. Those are the 3 guys that Vinny sent over. So let's go ahead and start off with Foster. Foster was having a rough day. Remember, he dropped a pass late that just let him hit him in the chest. You can't do that. I get so mad when I see guys allow the ball to get to their chest because there's more times than not it's going to bounce off. It's going to be an incompletion. Foster is very inconsistent. He needs to really step his game up. I mean, I was hanging out with a lot of folks, a lot of fans and friends and family on Sunday, and I know my man Vegas Jess was getting mad at Foster because of that big drop that he had, and it was just like, what are you doing? Anyway, he comes up with the game-tying touchdown pass that was not an easy pass for DC to make, but a really good play that Foster ran, a good route that was ran in the back of the end zone, and so he came up with the game-tying touchdown pass. So here's Vinny Bonsignore one-on-one with Foster Moreau in the Raiders locker room postgame.
Probably like 70 plays in football, so you're going to have opportunities to make good plays. There's going to be some disappointments. The fact that you hung in there and were able to make that play and the touchdown, where you kind of did you hang your head at all after the drop on 3rd down at all?
Say what you mean.
I know, man. I know.
It's on tape. I'm not an idiot, right?
Right.
No, I got to get my head around, and it's hard. This has been a process for me learning how to handle plays like that, right? Because oftentimes I get to play off of Darren, and there's obviously not much. I mean, you don't get much. There's not much adversity when doing that, right? Like I'll come in, block my butt off, and do that, right? Just continuing to try to learn how to be the best player I can without the ball in my hands, right? And making opportunities when the floor gives me a chance. And I mean, it seems like every chance he gives me hits right off my chest. You know, the guy's a great player. But it's hard, and there's a lesson in adversity, and we just got to keep growing, and I obviously got to get on the damn jugs machine.
Not a lot of room to work in the corner of that end zone. What are you thinking when you see the ball up in the air and are just?
I saw Derek rolling out, and I mean, Devontae was telling us in the huddle, he was just kind of laying it out for us what was going to happen, and he was absolutely right. So you just kind of got to keep running out the break, and I feel really bad. I took out a reporter over there, felt real bad. I didn't have much time to go check on him. I hope he's doing well.
Back-to-back wins now in overtime. Like, what has that done for the team morale? What's starting to click?
You know, guys are coming together. And it's still hard. And we try to follow a formula, right, of no turnovers, no penalties, no negative plays, right, stay on track, get us to third and manageable. And a lot of that's been difficult for the past couple of weeks, but just overcoming adversity has been a big point of something that we've had to do, right? 6 games before last Sunday, right? We couldn't get it done, and we had a chance on the last drive, and it's hard. And winning in this league is hard, right? But that doesn't mean you can just crawl into a corner and quit when you lose, right? You have to come back to work, and everyone's got jobs to do. You guys have jobs to do. We have jobs to do. And if we're not doing our jobs, we obviously got to come in and work harder and get better. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're just enjoying it, right? We're enjoying it, and we're enjoying each other, and we're coming in, and we have great energy, and you know the captains lead that, and it's fun. You know, we come to the building. Guys are getting in even earlier, staying even later. It's a good place to be.
So there you go. Very honest, Foster Moreau. And I love the fact that he said, I got to get on the jugs machine. I got to get on the damn jugs machine, right? I can't let that happen. I mean, he knows. At least he knows what his issue is. And he even told Vinny, like, spit it out. Say what you got to say. It's on film. I know I did it. He did it. Luckily for him, he had an opportunity to make up for it. And Derek Carr dropped a pretty ball in the bucket. You don't have to be a big Derek Carr fan to give him credit for that nice pass that he had in the back of the end zone. My man Mickey said, hey, that's a route I've been waiting for the Raiders to run for 2 years. You know, something that he said Tom Brady has made a living off of. All his time in New England made a living off. As soon as he saw that catch by Foster, he said, that's the same route I've been calling for forever. So shout out to my man Mickey who called that one out. Now, Amir Abdullah on my radio show on Friday, I said he was going to break one and take it to the house. I was like, that's my gut feeling. That's my bold prediction for Sunday. Now, he didn't take one to the house, but man, doesn't it feel like he's so close? Doesn't it feel like Amir Abdullah is so close to breaking one? He had a really nice return, and I thought, oh, man, there it is. And, I mean, he got caught around the 40-yard line. But I'm telling you, this special teams unit for the Raiders is getting better, and their kickoff return is getting better. Amir Abdullah, he's going to break one before this season's over. I feel very comfortable. He's so close. When you get that close, you realize you're one more move away, one broken tackle away from taking it to the house, just like Josh Jacobs did on Sunday. So here's Amir Abdullah in the Raiders locker room following the game.
Congratulations, big game for yourself. How fun is it to be in a game like that and to be involved in the way you were?
It's never easy in this league, man. We knew the challenge that was in front of us. Great defense, a defense that's built on the ball, taking the ball away, then turning the ball over twice early. I'm just proud of Texas' team. Sticking to it, a bending, not breaking, mentality. So I'm just really proud of the boys up front for one. Those are the unsung heroes. Derek had excellent pockets, all day. Of course, not everything's perfect, but when we needed it most, those guys came through, opened up lanes for Josh. And I mean, what can I say about Josh Jacobs, man? The dude's a true warrior, a guy who will battle through anything, put his teammates first every single time, never complains. I wish you guys could see his work ethic every single day, and now you'll see why he's playing at the level that he's playing at. And me being in my 8th year, I played with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Theo Reddick, a lot of guys who have been very productive in this league. And I put them right up there in that group, man. So a young guy who definitely has the future in front of him. And I'm proud as heck of him.
On your touchdown pass reception, it looked like there was an option maybe earlier in the route, and then you kind of wheeled it out.
Yeah.
Was that the look that you guys were?
I just tried to turn it up, and make a play for DC. I'm glad DC played my side. We caught the safety coming down a little bit too nosy, and it was just good timing.
And then also a great return for you as well. Yeah. So you enjoy, I'm sure, having games like this.
I mean, I just love playing ball against competitive units. I think it brings the best out of me. I think it brings the best out of our team. And I'm glad that we finished this one out.
Good stuff right there from Amir Abdullah after the Raiders come up with a 40-34 victory over the Seahawks, their 4th win of the season, and did a really good job in the return game. And, of course, had that early wheel route catch for a touchdown off of Derek Carr. And it's funny, when that play happened, I said the running back should be the target on this one. And because it looked like before the ball was even snapped, the flats were going to be open. The way the defense was lined up, I said the flat's going to be open. And then all of a sudden you see Abdullah hit the flats and then cut it up. And then that was when the wheel route was open, and DC made a perfect pass there. I know he had 2 interceptions on the day, but you got to give Derek some credit as well. Those touchdown passes that he had, really nice. Really nice. And even the little flea flicker that they had for the touchdown pass to Mac Hollins, that was incredible. And all the defense went when Devontae Adams and Mac Hollins basically walked into the end zone. So Derek Carr did a really good job, especially rebounding from that 2 early interceptions that he had. Finally, the guy who got a game ball from me in segment number 1, a guy who's been balling all season long, another dude who could have said, you know what, this season, the hell with it. We only have a couple wins. I already got paid. I can shut it on down, but he's not cut like that. That's Max Crosby. Fantastic. 1.5 sacks. Came up with some key plays late in the game to make sure that the Raiders got the ball back. Here he was in the Raiders locker room following the game.
That game pretty much had a little bit of everything. How fun was it to be in a game like that? Especially, obviously, the way it comes, the way you finish it up.
Yeah, it's the best. This is what you work for, all year round. Coming into great environments, like Seattle, and especially coming out with a win. It's a full team effort. So many guys stepping up in big moments, and it was an incredible experience for sure.
2 straight walk-offs in overtime. First, you guys got to do your job defensively, obviously, to help that. When you miss the field goal in overtime, are you guys on the sidelines going, okay, we're gonna take care of this, get the ball back to the offense?
We had no other option. We had to get them off the field. And, there were some ups and downs in the game, but we believed in our guys. We were confident, we were cool in the biggest moment. And you could just tell guys believed and we stepped up. So it's a big moment for sure.
When you're watching 28 take it to the house, what's going through your mind right there?
I seen him hit the hole, and I was running on the field, I think, before he got in the end zone. So proud of him. He wasn't even supposed to play. The fact that he comes out and has 300 yards, the dude is a different animal. Unbelievable. First team All-Pro. Different.
You haven't played here in Seattle? What'd you think?
Never played here before. No.
What did you think of the atmosphere and everything like that?
It was incredible. One of the best atmospheres in the league. Fans were amazing. Everything was, as expected or better. Everybody talks about this environment, and it was great. And then coming out with a win, we talked about it all week, coming out of Seattle, a good-ass team, and getting a win, there's nothing better.
So there you go right there, Mad Max Crosby, and it's always fun when you're winning. It's always fun. You can hear it in his voice right now, or right there, and man, I'm telling you, that dude, that's a dude that you could talk about and talk about and talk about. I still want to bring the Judd Thrash conversation, his high school defensive coordinator, his high school DC conversation that I had on Raider Nation Radio 920 last week. I never got it on the show last week. I do think that I'll get it on at some point this week because, man, I thought it was really good just to go behind the scenes and hear who Max Crosby was back in the day, even in high school at Colleyville Heritage. So there's Max Crosby in the locker room following the game. The Raiders come back home now. Legion Stadium will be the site the Chargers visit for Week 13 action. Very excited about that. But hats off to the Silver and Black for being resilient, going to a very tough environment in Seattle. I said on Friday that they needed a couple turnovers to come away with the victory. They got a couple turnovers, and they won the game. So I think they did a really good job. I even give the defense a lot of credit. Even though they gave up 34 points, I still give them a lot of credit. 10 points came off of turnovers, but so really they gave up 24 points. But they came up with key stops in key times when they needed them, right? Trayvon Merrick played a lot better. I still think he has opportunities to come up with interceptions, and he missed one. It was a little high in the end zone, but he had a couple pass breakups on the day. I thought that was good. Jerron Harmon almost came up with another interception on the day. Denzel Perryman did come up with an interception on the day. Chandler Jones came up with a fumble recovery on the day. I mean, there was a lot of plays that the defense made, so you got to give them a lot of credit. So that's all it's going to do for the show today, Raider Nation. Congratulations on another victory, and congratulations to the Silver and Black for your first winning streak of the 2022 season. Again, Raider Nation, thanks so much for making the Locked On Raider podcast your first listen each and every day. And so many people hit me up with that and tell me all the time, or they meet me in person and you're my first listen each and every day. That's awesome. That's awesome. I really do appreciate that, man. I cannot express it enough how much that means to me. But again, you can always find this show free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. My man Ari's making it do what it do in the background. So at Ari Produces on Twitter, you can always check him out. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and most importantly, as always, just like the Raiders did for the second week in a row, just win, baby.